Hi, I'm Lee, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we have the soundbar for our television just set on the fireplace, and we're going to try and put a shelf up here for it to sit on with just one piece of wood and an 8mm piece of dowel. Can it be done? Will it look any good? We're about to find out. Keep watching. So we're just going to make our shelf so it just fits underneath the TV nicely with a bit of room for the soundbar, and then the length of wood I've got is probably just going to stick out the end of the TV each side the same amount, so we need to make sure we get that central. Meet Sophie. Right, let's go and see how we're going to do this. Alright, first things first, we're just going to trim up the edge of here, get this nice and straight all the way down. Just going to use a table saw. This is our factory edge. We're going to want this side to the front, so we're going to run that along our fence. I've already adjusted the blade, so it's just about this width. We're just going to cut this down so we've got a nice straight square piece of wood. So that's it. Now it's all nice and straight and square. We'll go on to the next step. Right, now we'll just put it on our table. Our good face is facing down. This is our cut edge. What I want to do is mark now where I want to put these pieces of dowel. Now, because we're only using like an 8mm dowel, I think it's 8mm. Yeah, 8mm. We're only going to be cutting them to really 3/4 of the length of the wood. So, although that's quite bendy there, when you're just using that much of it, that hardly, you know, from there to there, that hardly bends at all. And this isn't going to have to hold much weight. So what we'll do, we'll just mark our spots where we want to do our dowels. We'll do one in the middle, one at either end, and then again one down there. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Mark out our 5 spots. So let's say we're going to come 2 inches from our edges. You don't have to be exact with these. So that's 41 inches from point to point. So we'll have one at 20.5 inches. And then 10.25. Now we're just going to square all these marks up. Then we're just going to see what the width of this wood is. Let's call it 27. So the middle of the wood is going to be 13.5. So we'll just slide this over. There's 14. If we put this on 13. Then the width of our pencil should be marking the centre. So I'll mark all the centres of these, if the camera weren't in the way of. Now we're just going to get an 8mm drill bit. Hopefully it's the same size as this. And we're going to drill our holes down, but we need to make sure these are perfectly vertical. Alright, here's our 8mm drill bit. And I don't think that is going to be anywhere near wide enough. It is about a mil too short, I think. Let's have a look at a 9mm bit. Alright, let's just try. Right, so we've just got ourselves a similar piece of wood. So we're just going to test out. That goes in there, but that's a little bit. It's a little bit too loose, really. Right, let's try our 8mm. That looks a lot smaller than the 9. Well, it's not going to be. That's going to be nice and tight. What we'll do, we'll stick this in the drill. We'll sand this down a touch because we want these to be a tight fit. Actually, that last one I drilled, I'm going to use as a pilot because that's going to keep my drill nice and vertical. So we can get our drill on our cross where we need it to go. Doesn't visually look centered. Right, that does. So now we can put our piece of wood down to start us off vertical. Right, so we want to make these holes pretty much the length of the wood, so I know I can go all the way in and leave myself with an inch, 3/4 of an inch. So I don't have to worry about putting tape on here, because we're going to go all the way down with this. Right, so let's use this again to keep me up straight. And then let's go all the way in. Same 5 times all the way along. They're not quite exactly in the middle, but that doesn't matter. Right, so now what we're going to do from where our holes are, we're going to come in an inch from the edge. You know, roughly, doesn't have to be precise. And what we'll do now, I'm just going to cut this strip down on the table saw. So I'm just going to mark the centre of our holes across the face of this, just for reference, in case I need them later. Right, so I'm just going to cut this down. Right, so that's our 2 halves, and when they go back together, that's a pretty good unseen edge with a bit of sanding. You won't even notice that's been cut. Right, now we just want to cut 5 lengths of dowel off, so we know they need to be the length of the drill bit, because that's how deep we went, but we'll cut them just a little bit shorter. Right, so now we've got our 5 little dowels. They're going to come quite far into the wood. Now we're just going to sand these down to make them fit. But what we want this first part, we want the piece that goes into this wood to be nice and tight. So we're going to mark up there. So we know this one we want to be nice and tight in here, and then this one could be a little bit looser. Right, so what we're going to do with these is put them in our drill. And just sand this end down a little bit where we got our pencil mark. Okay, keep checking them as we go. Although I think that is going to take forever to get them sanded down properly. Right, stick them in just to make sure this is all nicely lined up. Let me try. I'm just going to make this hole a bit bigger with a 9mm just to see how good the fit is. That's the one I've just sanded down a bit. Actually, that is still a tight fit when it goes all the way in. Now I can't get it out. Let's make these all a little bit wider. So I actually think that these are gonna be fine. Right, so I'm just going to pull these pins out. We're going to get these 2 meeting faces sanded down nicely, and we'll go from there. Oh, I've just got a bit of 120, a bit of old 120 grit on there. I don't really want to take much off of this. It's on a piece of plywood, so it's nice and flat. So I'm just going to hold it flat and go along. They're fitting perfectly together now. So now to make sure these are going to fit in here loosely, so it's going to be a lot easier to slide them together, we'll now just sand these lightly. They shouldn't need much at all, just to be a little bit looser. Just keep testing your fit. turn this round the other way and we'll mark our mounting points out. And because that is the side that fits on there like that, so because we'll be putting our screws through this way into the wall, we want to countersink our screws into the wood slightly. So let's put this all back together for a minute. Right, now we've got this together, we're just going to go over it with some P120 sandpaper. Just try and get rid of any little gaps we got and just make these surfaces nice and smooth. We're also just going to run along the edge and just round over the edges very slightly. It hardly needs anything doing on this one. The way I do the edges, I just like to run it at 45 degrees a couple of times, tilt it sort of 15 degrees, 20 degrees a couple of times. Same again that way, 15, 20 degrees a couple of times. So 45 degrees, a couple of times, 15 degrees, 20 degrees, a couple of times, and then that way, a couple of times. And that just gives you a nicely, just rounded over edge, just a very small one, just takes the sharp edge off it. And I think I've got some oak stains somewhere I might try on here and just see what that looks like. Alright, so now we're all sanded down. You can see there are some little gaps here, but that's the bottom, and when we pull it tight and screw it in, those gaps will pretty much be gone. So we've just got some light oak water stain. I'm just going to give this a go. Use a paintbrush or sponge for this. Can be applied with a spray gun. When dry, remove the excess stain with a slightly damp sponge. Right, use of gloves is recommended. So, oh, that lid's leaking. Right, we could use a little pot or so, but I'll just go tip a little bit on, and then we'll brush it in. Going with the grain. Need to make sure we spread this out nice and evenly so there's no blotching. Oh, I quite like the look of that so far. I'm just going to let that dry a bit, then we'll come over and we'll just wipe it off, see what it looks like. We might put a second coat on there. Well, so it's drying out now. Still got a couple of little patches that still are dark where it's still a bit wet, but I'm just going to give this another coat to see if it'll make it any darker at all. Right, now that's it. We'll let that dry again. We'll give it a wipe over with a cloth, and then I think we'll get some I think we've got some wax somewhere, and we'll put some wax over it and see how that comes out. Alright, we're looking pretty much smooth now. Dry and smooth. So just gonna take a microfiber cloth. Just gonna wipe over it. It is slightly damp still, this cloth. Now what we'll do, we'll pull this apart. We'll get these dowels glued into this side only, onto the shorter piece that's going on the wall. Oh, I just got a bit of wood glue, Gorilla Wood glue. Now we're not going to go mad with these because we don't want glue squeezing out everywhere. So, and then we're just going to get these glued into place. So we'll put it over our workbench, so we can just tap this down. If you want to be anal, get the you're never going to see them, but you can get the grain lined up. Just get rid of any squeeze out of glue on the back there. We'll just get rid of any glue just around the edge of this. Right, now while we're waiting for that glue to set, we'll go and get our holes drilled on the wall, so it's going to be ready to hang. Right, so we know that our sound bar is about 2.5 inches deep, so we don't want it butting right up against here. So I'm just going to take a line from our Samsung logo, so we're roughly in the middle. We'll probably come down, say 4 inches, so we'll mark a line there, and then we'll mark the centre of the wall, which is 62 and a, that's 62 and a half, so 31 and a quarter. Let's move it up to this line. So we want 31 and a quarter. So it's pretty much where we marked our line in the centre of the Samsung logo. So we know that's now centred. Centre the line with that. Just put our spirit level on. Just going to nudge that down. Now we've just got a 4mm masonry bit for now, just because we drilled 5mm holes in there originally. So I'm just going to literally just mark the wall. So now we'll take that out. We'll get in our 6mm bit, because we're just going to be using our red raw plugs. So we're going to go just over halfway. And that's feeling very hollow. So what we're going to do now, I mean, we could be on a mortar line that's going straight across, or we could be on one of the perps going up and down. This wallpaper's all getting changed, this room's being decorated, this is all coming off anyway. So what we'll do, we're just going to go just below this, see if we're going to hit any brick. We're going to go up to our 6mm. I can actually see bits of brick coming out in the fireplace. Alright, so that is all now ready to hang. Hopefully these glue's dried a bit now. We're going to finish this off with a bit of wax, and we'll mark our screw holes to hold the front to these pins. Right, now I haven't gone out and bought stuff especially like the stain or this beeswax. Nourish, feeds and protects fine interior wood. Well, it's not fine wood, but it'll do. Right, so this beeswax is just like it's not a hard beeswax, just like a nice and soft. We're just going to use this lint-free cloth. We've used this before for the beeswax, so it should be okay. Right, so we're just going to put some of this on in the direction of the grain and hope it looks okay. Spread it out and rub it in. Right, now I think we leave that for 15 minutes, I think you said. We're going to leave that for 15 minutes, buff it up with a clean cloth, and we'll see what it looks like and see whether we're going to give it a second coat, although you have to wait 2 hours before you give it a second coat. But we'll come back to this and we'll buff it up in a second. Well, in 15 minutes. Don't know how many seconds that is. Right, so this is at about 15 minutes. We've got a clean cloth in our drawer. Now we're just going to buff it up. You can see that going from dull to shiny. Very smooth. Oh no, I think that's come up very well. As you're wiping it, you can feel the bit of wax residue that's on there, and it's dull, and as you're wiping it you can see the wood just shining up. Shines up and then becomes super smooth. It's only a little shelf, so I think that will do for now. So what we do next, we're just going to drill in a couple of holes where these dowels are. So when we put it on the wall and push it together, we can put the screws in that will just touch the dowels. It will just go into the dowels slightly. We're not going to make them go all the way through. We just want to make them touch the dowels to hold everything in place. And just pilot a hole through here. Countersink them, because obviously we don't want to see them. Now you can do this before if you want, so you get stain and wax in there. But this is the underside, you're not really going to see them. So it's up to you when you do your countersinks. We are now ready to get this on the wall. Let's go. So let's make sure we get it the right way up. Get our first screw in place. Right, that is on there nice and solid. All our screws are in below the surface. Hopefully this wall is flat now. Otherwise that wood's could be bowing and this wood won't fit it. Let's get our dowels in place. Might need a little wiggling around. And then slide it back. Oh, that is fantastic. And now what you can do to lock it in place, just put our little screws. Oh, lose a screw. Now, I mean, this is so tight on here, you probably wouldn't really need to put the screws under here. But you can, if you have got a gap, you can possibly push it back a bit. That's it, just get it just below the surface. No one's ever going to see it. There we go, that's it. That is pretty strong. Bit of flex in there, but you're going to get that anyway. But nothing super heavy is going on top of it here. So now we can take our soundbar, place it under there in the middle. Sit Sophie at the end. My missus hates that dog. There we go, a little tidy up. So there we have it. It's all in place now. I think that looks pretty good to me. Like I say, it's quite sturdy. It's only got to hold that. You know, that can probably hold quite a bit more weight that's on it. But obviously you don't have to do it. You know, you don't have to stain it. You don't have to do it that colour. You can undercoat this wood. Pretty much paint any colour you like. You can paint it black so it blends in with everything else. It's entirely up to you. But if you're just wanting a soundbar, or you know, probably a couple of kilograms of stuff, this will do the job. And now you can use thicker wood as well. You can get yourself a live edge piece of wood. If you're going to use thicker wood, I would suggest using thicker dowels. It's all just, yeah, this all works out the same thing. But obviously thicker wood, thicker dowels, it's going to take a lot more weight than what this is. But I like it. That'll do for now. If you like this video, please like, please comment, please subscribe, share it to your friends if you must. And fingers crossed you like this, and I'll see you for the next one. Thanks for watching. There we have it, in place and looking good if I don't say so. There.